What's going on, YouTube? Today we got 98 Michael Jordan versus 2020 LeBron James. Whose championship was harder? Whose season was more impressive? And things in that light. Without further introduction, if you don't know how we do here, we still new to this. We soon be true to this. Let's get into it, man. All links in the description. Check that down below. What else? That's it. Damn, I gotta restart my OBS, y'all. Hotkeys not working again.
For the past 5 years, NBA fans and the media have been obsessed with one debate, and that debate is LeBron James versus Michael Jordan. And I understand how that same topic, it can get extremely old. But today, I am back with another video, and I'm not going to be comparing LeBron and Jordan and the totality of their careers. Today, I'm going to be looking at Michael Jordan's 1998 season versus LeBron James's 2020 season. And I chose these two specific years for a couple of reasons. I think it's important to compare both these players at age 35. I think one of the big questions this year is whether LeBron James was the best 35-year-old in NBA history. And also The Last Dance, it came out in the same year LeBron won his 4th championship. So with all that happening, I thought it'd be fun to compare those two players and those two seasons. And before I go into this comparison, I think we need to highlight how different basketball was in the late 90s compared to the late 2010s and early 2020s.
That's a fact.
In 1998, the pace of the NBA was at 90.3.
I like what you're getting into this video, Uncut. Last one I was fake. Fake had me a little upset, man. You wasn't getting into too many details. You was using more, I forgot what you was doing. But you was doing something that was getting me changed. Word, game. But I like what you going with this, man.
And since 1980, that ranks as 37th. In 2020, the pace is 100.3. That is the 9th fastest since 1980. In 1998, the average points per game for a team in the NBA was 95.6. That is the 6th lowest. In 2020, it's 111.8. That ranks as number 1. And one of the last big differences in both these eras is that in 1998, teams were taking 12.7 threes. That ranks
now it's
26.
34.
And in 2020, teams are taking 34.1. That ranks as first. And also getting away from the stats and just looking at the film, you can tell off the bat, in 1998, there was less spacing, less freedom of movement, and better rim protectors.
Less spacing.
In 2020, obviously, there's more threes, better spacing, and
be looking like the court is so small. In 1990,
so with all
watching
that
the older
films, let's look at our first player, that being Michael Jordan
I got a
in
booger in my nose.
1998. And during this year, Jordan, he averaged 28.7 points per game. That led the NBA. 5.8 boards, 3.5 assists, 1.7 steals, 0.5 blocks, while shooting 46.5% from the field, 23.8% from 3, and 78.4% from the line. Now, Jordan this year, he would walk away with some hardware. He was the MVP. He was first-team All-NBA, first-team All-Defense, and he finished 4th in the Defensive Player of the Year voting. And the Bulls this year had the best record in the NBA, despite Scottie Pippen missing 44 games. And in those games, the Bulls, they went 26-12. And
come on, y'all. Y'all can't act like the Bulls wasn't them. They without Scottie. They going 62-20 without Scottie when they're old. You know? Think about that. And y'all trying to say that they you know what I'm saying, it wasn't that good of a team. I understand what y'all saying, but bro, the proof is in the pudding. The numbers don't lie, man. The numbers don't lie. They was a great team. One of the greats.
And also, this team, they were the oldest in the NBA. Rodman, he was 36. Jordan was 35. Harper was 34. Pippen was 32. And Luke Longley was 29. And when the playoffs came around, Jordan, he averaged 32.4 points per game, 5.1 boards, 3.5 assists, 1.5 steals, 0.6 blocks, while shooting 46.2% from the field, 30.2% from 3, and 81.2% from the free throw line. And one thing I do want to point out very quickly averaging 32 points per game in one of the slowest paced eras of all time. That is extremely impressive. And what's also impressive is how dominant this Bulls team was during the first 2 rounds,
uncut.
as they had a 7-1 record through their first 8 games, and they beat the New Jersey Nets and also the Charlotte Hornets. But in the Eastern Conference Finals, this is where the Bulls would find their first struggle as they faced off against the Indiana Pacers. And in this series, Dennis Rodman, he was benched in 6 out of the 7 games, and he saw his minutes per game average go from 41.7 all the way down to 29.5. And despite Rodman being benched, the Bulls, they would find a way to pull out this series in 7 games and advance back to the NBA Finals for their 3rd consecutive time. Now in the
that's a hard thing to do because that Indiana team was fake tough. It was fake tough, right? I'm pretty sure. I think it was this year that
they were
once
again matched up against the Utah Jazz.
I think it was tough.
He would average 33.5 points per game, 4.0 boards, 2.3 assists, 1.8 steals, and 0.7 blocks, while shooting 42.7% from the field, 30.8% from 3, and 81.4% from the line. And in this series, Jordan, he scored 38% of the Bulls' total points. That is the most in NBA history. And the one iconic moment from this series comes in Game 6 in Utah, where Jordan had 45 points, plus the iconic dagger shot over Byron Russell. And one thing I do want to point out is how Jordan's supporting cast in the 98 playoffs, it was one of the weakest the NBA has ever seen. Jordan's supporting cast in 98 averaged 60.9 points per game. That is the lowest for a championship team in NBA history. Add on the fact that Rodman, he was benched in the Eastern Conference Finals as well as the Finals, and that Pippen was dealing with back injuries. Ron Harper, he had bad knees. Tony Kukoc was a defensive liability, and Luke Longley had no offensive game. That makes this playoff run for Jordan extremely impressive. And one other thing that adds on to that is how Jordan performed in the clutch. He averaged 5.4 points per game in the clutch that led the playoffs while shooting 44% from the field, 16.7% from 3, 77.5% from the line. And for the entirety of the playoffs, Jordan had 76 total clutch points compared to the rest of the Bulls roster, who only had 66. So all that right there, I think it definitely shows that Jordan, he was carrying this old, run-down Bulls team across the finish line in 1998. Now, let's move on to LeBron's
most definitely. I agree with you on that. When it gets to that playoffs, even in the regular season, Jordan be wilding. But them playoffs, boy, Jordan ain't playing with nobody, man. He's not finna play with you. He ain't playing with nobody. Come on.
2020 championship season. And this year for LeBron, this was his 2nd year in LA, and this was his 1st year playing with superstar Anthony Davis. And during the regular season, LeBron would average 25.3 points per game, 10.2 assists, 7.8 rebounds, 1.2 steals, 0.5 blocks, while shooting 49.3% from the field, 34.8% from 3, and 69.3% from the line. And that great year from LeBron would have him finish 2nd in MVP voting and make 1st team All-NBA. And the Lakers had a 52-19 record, which was the 3rd best in the NBA. And this Lakers team, it was really the duo of Anthony Davis and LeBron James that made them a really special team. They also had good role players like KCP, Kyle Kuzma, Rajon Rondo, Alex Caruso, and many other great contributing players. Now, when it came to the playoffs, LeBron, he was equally as great, averaging 27.6 points per game, 10.8 rebounds, 8.8 assists, 1.2 steals, 0.9 blocks, while shooting 56% from the field, 37% from 3, and 72% from the line. And this Lakers team had a fairly easy time in the Western Conference, as they had a 12-3 record, beating the following teams: the 35-39 Blazers, the 44-28 Rockets, and the 46-27 Denver Nuggets. And when they got to the finals, everyone was anticipating a great finals series with the Miami Heat, who had a 44-29 record. But it was kind of a letdown, as Bam Adebayo and Goran Dragic were both dealing with severe injuries throughout this series. And because of those injuries, as well as LeBron's great play, the Lakers, they would win this series in 6 games.
Wait, chill. You see that though? I ain't gonna lie, Bron's stats looking good on this show. 20, damn near 30. 12 rebounds a game, 9 assists. That's different, bro. 40% from the 3. Come on, man. That's back when Bron had his jump on point. His shit didn't drop. His shit done been dropped, but this is the finals. But in the 2020 finals, it's been passed. You can't even change it. But I'm saying, the regular season, 3-point percentage this year is horrible.
He was named the Finals MVP
20-something, 29 something, 28. Bad.
After he put up amazing numbers on amazing shooting splits. And one thing I do want to point out quickly is LeBron's stats in the clutch this postseason were not that impressive, as he only averaged 1.3 points per game on 18.8% shooting, 0.0% from 3, and 77.8% from the line. So that right there is a summary of LeBron's 2020 championship run, as well as Jordan's.
How many total clutch points was there and all that, though? Why didn't you do all that, game? You kicked out, you know what I'm saying? You should have told us how many total clutch points he had, and how many total clutch points the team had, like you did with the Jordan shit.
98 run. Now we'll try to compare both those runs to see which.
There probably wasn't even that many clutch moments. As you said, they went 12-3.
Which one is
shit
more
like
impressive? And the best way to compare both these players, looking at 1998 versus 2020, is to look at their per 100 stats. And when you look at these stats, Jordan averages 44.5 points per game, 7.0 boards, 4.8 assists, 2.1 steals, 0.8 blocks, 2.9 turnovers with the same shooting splits. Now, if you compare that to LeBron James, he averages 37.6 points per game, 14.6 boards, 11.9 assists, 1.7 steals, 1.2 blocks with 5.4 turnovers on the exact same shooting splits. So, looking at just these stats, I would say LeBron James, he has the slight edge over Michael Jordan. But these stats are not the only thing I'm going to use to evaluate how impressive both these runs were. What I'm going to use next is look at which player had the most help. And when looking at both these rosters, I think it's pretty obvious LeBron played with superior help, as Jordan's team featured an old Dennis Rodman, Scottie Pippen, who was dealing with back injuries, Tony Kukoc, a defensive liability, Ron Harper, 34.
I hate this this type of analyzation. This is basically comparing like eras. Basically, like you comparing the different teams to different two different eras. Man, they're gonna be different. Like I don't like this analyzation, but continue.
4 years old, and other role players who were hit or miss, like Steve Kerr, Luke Longley, and Bill Winnington. Whereas when you look at the 2020 Lakers, LeBron is playing with another bona fide superstar in Anthony Davis, who was arguably the best player on the Lakers at certain points during this playoff run. Also, this Lakers team had very good role players like KCP, Kyle Kuzma, Dwight Howard, Rondo, Marcus
I don't know about
Morris,
on the playoff
Danny
run.
Green,
I don't remember
Dennis,
that. But
JaVale McGee, and Alex Caruso. So I think looking at the roster of both these teams and taking into account how much older the Bulls were than this Lakers team, I think it's fairly obvious that Jordan, he was dealing with a worse team as well as a worse supporting cast. And also one thing that is very important to evaluate is
worst team. They went how many games they won without Pippen? 62-20 without Pippen. I don't think that's a worst team. Gang. Maybe worst players, not a worst team though. As a team, they played great.
Is who faced the tougher playoff competition. And when you look at the path that Jordan had in the Eastern Conference, he had to face 43 and 39 Nets.
That's what you need to be comparing. The competition they played against, the degree of difficulty, things of that nature.
Hornets, the 58 and 24 Pacers, and in the finals, he had to beat the 62 and 20 Utah Jazz. Now compare that to LeBron, who had to face the 35 and 39 Blazers, the 44 and 28 Rockets, the 46 and 27 Nuggets, and the 44 and 29 Heat, And based off that, I would say Jordan, he faced a tougher competition in the playoffs. And one last thing I think is very important to evaluate is how both these players performed in the clutch. Jordan, during his playoff run, averaged 5.4 points per game that led the NBA, while shooting 44% from the field, 16.7% from 3, and 77.5% from the line. Now, compared to LeBron, who only averaged 1.3 points per game on 18.8% shooting, 0.0% from 3, and 77.8% from the line. And I think one of the things that really gives Jordan's performance a huge edge over LeBron James is how he performed in Game 6 versus the Utah Jazz, having 45 points, the clutch steal, and the big-time iconic shot over Byron Russell.
That's a fact, bro. Me personally, it's not even an argument. What? That 98 playoff run, bro. That's different. Like, bro, that 2020 win, that was the quarantine win. That shit was fake ass. Like, Bron, you supposed to win that. I ain't gonna lie. That's a freebie for the legacy. You know, they can't take that away from you, but you ain't getting no extra points for it. So you got to do some more. Like, but this is not really even a discussion, man. Jordan's playoff run was by far more impressive, man. The way he did it, how it happened, it was just crazy, man. I barely even remember that the Lakers won that 2020 championship, bro. That's how, like, it was so whack, bro. Quarantine going on, like, it's trash.
So my final verdict on who had the more impressive playoff run, I would have to side with Michael Jordan in 1990.
And there was no fans in the bubble, bro. Everybody was wilding. No fans. Everybody feeling everybody comfortable. You know, that's not how the game supposed to be played. You need that. You gotta have that nerve-wracking feeling, man.
As I think Jordan,
when everybody
overall,
watching, that
he put
anxiety
up great
a
numbers.
little bit, at least in the
Carried his
beginning of
Bulls
the game.
team that was old and breaking down. He faced some all-time great teams, and in the end, he had the bigger and better clutch time moments. And that's not saying LeBron's 2020 playoff run wasn't amazing or wasn't all-time great. It's just saying that it wasn't as good as Jordan.
I mean, what Brown was doing as an individual was great, but in terms of like
Jordan in
I wasn't into it, man. It's like I just knew Brown was gonna win. You know, it's like whatever, you gonna win that. We went outside the bubble.
Still,
now
I
with
think
the Lakers,
the one
man.
thing
For
that
real.
holds me back from saying LeBron's more impressive is that he had Anthony Davis, who was arguably the better player for half of the playoffs and maybe even half of the season. And Jordan, he simply didn't have a player like Anthony Davis who demanded that much attention from the defense and could basically score a bucket anytime he wanted to. So that right there is my final verdict on who had the better playoff run. And I wanted to make this video in response to LeBron James, saying that his 2020 championship is one of the toughest championships in NBA history. And this video is going a little bit long.
It was? Maybe I don't remember, because that shit seemed pretty easy to me, man. I don't remember nothing about that shit. That shit so-so, you know? But that's the end of this one, y'all. Let me know how y'all feel about it. I don't feel like it's a discussion, to be honest. You know? It's for content purposes only. Things of that nature. Click on the last reaction if you enjoyed. My brothers and sisters, tell me which one we should react to next. And I'm out of here.